Well, good evening. It is 8:46 p.m. Monday. It's Monday night. The moon is out. It's a clear sky. It's beautiful outside. And I just got finished having my dinner and watching the movie with my daughter. And I wanted to talk a little bit about this movie, this great movie. Well, we didn't finish it, we still got about a third of it. We're going to finish it tomorrow. But the movie is called, if you've never heard of it, I never heard of it until tonight, it's called The Invention of Lying. And it was made in 2009. It's a comedy. And it's about a world, ours, the Earth, but the setting is one where people they've never had what's the word I'm looking for? There's no lying. There's no falsehoods. They just kind of like say whatever's on their mind. It always comes out as being like brutally honest to the point where you're just like, oh my gosh, it sounds like they're all insulting each other, and it's just like crazy. Because nobody lies, nobody lies. Everybody says exactly what's on their mind. And the main character, this guy, he at some point in the movie figures out how to lie, because nobody lies, but he figures out how to lie. And it's a really interesting movie because and it really sparked a lot of conversation with my daughter, and we had to keep stopping the movie and talking about it, because he does use he uses this power of the lie. When he speaks the lie to somebody, they accept it. It's like without hesitation. And he comes across as like, all-knowing, all-powerful, almost like a god on the planet. And so whatever he speaks, if it's a lie, people believe it. So it's really interesting because he uses it to get money for himself, but then he also uses it uses the lies to bring a better quality of life for some people, one for his mother while she's dying. She's afraid. She's in the hospital bed. She's dying, and she's scared of dying, and she's a nervous wreck. And he lies to her and tells her, well, he thinks he's lying to her, and he tells her that, everything's going to be okay. You're going to meet your family and relatives that you haven't seen, and it's going to be very peaceful. And so she believes it, and of course she does die, but she dies happy. And you'll see him throughout the movie where he is lying to people, but repairing problems that people are having. And so there's this duality with the movie, where it's like the shadow aspects of ourselves are being illuminated, that dark side of us and the light side of us. And I think, Melody was asking me a lot of questions about it. And I think that, my takeaway from this is that, there's aspects of ourselves that we try to bury, that we try to ignore, and we try to say to ourselves, well, no, these parts of us don't exist, but they do. And the challenge in life is understanding boundaries with yourself, where the dark and the light are allowed to exist together, and maybe they need to. And we have to figure out how to navigate what seems like a paradox. So it's really, really interesting. And of course, this movie just, really starts me thinking, because it just brings me to this concept of awakening. And I don't know how much you know about spiritual awakenings and awakenings. If you've ever heard that term before, but it is a process that people are going through, and I think more and more people are going through it. And as more and more people go through it, I think you're going to start to see the evidence of it. And one of the areas that I think we're seeing it right now is in the political system. And a lot of people come away with the idea and notion that, things are going to get worse before they get better. And that there is all of this unrest, and that people are at each other's throat, and there are divisions in the sand, and they are really strong divisions. And people have very strong opinions, and it's a very tough road to navigate. And I think that what you're seeing is there is this realization that's been happening, and I think since COVID, where we are understanding that the powers that be hold maybe too much power, and the power that they hold, they're not wielding it with the proper authority, and that they are using that power to enrich themselves and to fill their pockets, while everybody else is left to fend for themselves, and sometimes they're not even able to do that. And of course, the powers that be, right? They like to create these this dynamic where there are sides, a left and a right, and they try to keep you busy with the idea or notion that the person on the other side is the real enemy instead of the people in power. And it's very tempting sometimes to believe that. But it's just so interesting. I started noticing when I was younger that these people were they would sit at these galas and parties together with each other. They supposedly hated each other, but here they are at these functions, right? And they are eating and breaking bread together and laughing and having a good old time, while you and I are arguing with each other. And I started to realize a long time ago, I was like, that's really weird. That is really weird. And then after the gala or the dinner, then they would pretend like they were at odds with each other again, And I'm just going to try to make this so that the lights don't go off, because I have a feeling this is going to turn into a little bit of a longer session. There. I used to be a political junkie, and man, I was so wrapped up in that, and I really believed, that the people who make the rules and tell us how to live our lives had our best interests at heart. And I think that some of them do, but I think a lot of them don't. And I think it's pretty evident that that's the case, But it's not that simple, right? It's not that simple, because we, the governed, we have to, right? We secede some amount of power to these people. We give it to them. And we do so gladly, because we're busy with our lives, right? We're doing things, and we're expecting them to hold their end of the bargain. And we have no idea what's really going on over there, and they make it pretty hard for us to really see what's happening. And so it creates this dynamic, where they're kind of like, hey, we'll give you a little bit of red meat to play with, but you shouldn't look too closely as to what's going on over here, because it's really over your head, and this is our job, and it's our place, and we're spending the time here every day, and we understand these issues that you don't understand. And so they'll only tell you a few aspects of a situation, and then throw that red meat out there for us to fight over and squabble over, while they're doing whatever it is that they're doing. And they're passing these 30,000 page documents and putting them into law, and just like, it's just a lot of crazy stuff that's going on, and we have no idea what's really going on. We have no idea. But I think that what we're seeing is that as this awakening process starts, and it has started, it is working, we're seeing this chaos in our political system. And the political system is having a problem right now because it's having to confront itself. Just like anyone who's going through an awakening, you will be confronted with yourself. So the idea is, though, is at the end of the awakening, you have a stronger idea of self. And through that process, you learn how to treat yourself better, right? Treat yourself with respect, care, and patience. And therefore, once you know how to do that with yourself, you will extend those courtesies to your neighbor, and thus the world looks better. But this awakening process, man, it could take 6 months, it could take a year, it could take 2 years, it could take 3 years, it could take 10 years. And there are differing degrees, where people go through the awakenings. And so no one is the same. But one thing that's in common with this awakening is that in between the beginning and the end, it's messy. It's messy. And people are coming into contact with aspects of themselves that maybe they haven't looked at in a long time. And some of those aspects are problematic. And, this movie that we watched tonight, it really illuminated that fact for me. And I think that, what the world is going through right now could be explained as birthing pains. And I think we're moving in the process. We're in the process of going from the old world into a new world, a newer world, a better world, where the people on this planet see each other in a different light, a better light, where they are more loving towards each other, where they're more loving with each other because they're more loving with themselves. Because the spiritual awakening process, it is designed, and it really does have its own design. It's like a program that unpacks and goes into action, and you can't stop it. And by design, it isolates you from the rest of the world. And sometimes it will remove you from your own family, and it will take people out of your family, and it will take situations out of your life and force you to sit down and evaluate things the way they really are. And here again, this is the messy part, where not everybody is willing to do that. And the program doesn't really care. The program says, yeah, we're going to do this. And you essentially have your free will removed for a period of time. And you have two choices, right? You are either going to go through this process, or you're going to put a bullet in your head. It's one of the two. And, depending upon how you live your life, it could be a very confronting process. But I can tell you that the time that it takes to get through the process is directly dependent upon your willingness to work with the process and to understand that it's helping you. It's not trying to punish you or make your life miserable, though it feels that way. It feels that way, and it feels very one-sided, and it feels like, you'll want to defend yourself, and you'll look around and you'll see that there's nobody to defend you. And you're just totally on your own. And it's that way on purpose. But, the universe, God, whoever's directing this process, is very kind. That's all I can tell you, is very kind, and it will help you understand what's happening as the process unfolds. And it will find ways to do that are agreeable to you. But you have to be willing to work with the process. And that is really the key. And it's hard in the beginning because, like I said, you think that something's being done to you. And I can tell you this, that, while this process is happening, you are completely aware that this process is happening and that it is something that is like a supernatural quality. And it's very, very, very confronting, mostly because we've never had someone in our lives come at us this way. You're talking about direct intervention from the other side of the curtain, you might refer to that energy as God or, source or whatever you want to give it, but it is there and it is working with you and it is in your life for a time to help you live a better life, right? And when you start living a better life, you're going to contribute to the world in a different way, and then the world looks better. And then guess what happens when the world looks better? When the people in the world are better, the people that go into governments, right? The people that go into chief of police, our teachers, our priests, our nuns, our lawyers, and all those people come from our communities. And when our communities are better, because they have better people, you're going to have better leadership qualities that are in place, and the world's going to look like a better place. But like I said, while this process is happening, it's kind of messy. But I think that it is helpful to understand what is happening. And you could look at it one of two ways. I look at it like, thank God, thank God. And I'm happy to be a part of it. And I'm cherishing the opportunity to share my experiences with everybody, because I know that so many of the people who will be watching these videos are either going through it or are going to go through it themselves, or maybe you already have. And while it is extremely arresting in the beginning, when it's done, you will be left with, I'll tell you, you're going to say, thank God this happened. I'm so happy that it happened. And in the beginning, if someone told you that you would say that, you would just be like, there's no way in the world that I'm ever going to have that opinion. But I can tell you that when you get to the other side of this thing, you will understand that it had to be that way. It had to be confronting. It's just like boot camp, man, except it's like spiritual boot camp, right? And when I say spiritual boot camp, I'm not talking about like, we're not, it's not, it's not like super religious, okay? But what it is dealing with spiritual concepts, right? Like patience, like understanding, like forgiveness, okay? With compassion. These are spiritual qualities, all right? And they belong in all religions. No religion's going to say you shouldn't have compassion or shouldn't have forgiveness. So it's not, you don't need to be in a church or a building or a denomination of some religion to corner these qualities. You can bring these qualities into your life and in anywhere. It doesn't matter whether you're in your garage fixing your old car, or you're talking to your mom on the phone, or whatever. You're a teacher, or you're just, having a good time with the fellas. But all of us have experienced really difficult times in our lives, and sometimes we're the victim and sometimes we're the villain. Let's face it. Sometimes, at some point in your life, you've been both of those things, right? And when you're the villain, it's interesting, because do you ever get to the point where you realize you were the villain and that there was a victim? And you could turn it around the other way too. This doesn't matter, but at any point, you have to get to the place where you're going to accept responsibility for the part you play, whatever it is, and that is the process of spiritual awakening. And so during this process, you will be faced with you're going to need to forgive yourself. You're going to need to forgive others. You're going to need to understand yourself, and you're going to need to understand others. You're going to have to recognize your weakness, and you're going to have to recognize the weakness in your neighbor. And through this process, hopefully when you're done, you understand that you're not a perfect human being, and no one's a perfect human being. And once you've gone through this process, you're going to see, you know, you have that duality. It's there, the good and the bad. That's what we say, right? You have those aspects of yourself, and so does your neighbor, so does your brother, so does your sister, so does your mom, so does your dad. And, this dance in life where we're trying to navigate this game and find out who we are, and we're testing out these ideas and principles, and it's kind of messy that we don't always get it right. But we recognize when we get it wrong that we want forgiveness, right? And we want people to understand and say, well, I messed up there. Gosh, will you forgive me? And the person has an opportunity to, one, understand what you're going through because they've gone through it or are going through it. And they say, yes, of course, brother, I forgive you. Of course. I'm here for you if you need someone to talk to. And, that is the dynamic that the new world's going to have. The new world is going to have that because you understand that when people harm you or do things to you that you would consider harmful, you're going to probably realize, that this person was wounded or this person has some kind of, there's problems there, and it's not like done out of overt meanness. And maybe sometimes it is, but I think most of the time it's not, because I think people are mostly good-willed people, but life gets in the way, and a lot of times people are overburdened with life, and they have no more patience for anything, and they're always one step away from a nervous breakdown or a psychotic break. And so we have to kind of understand that everybody's life is different. It doesn't look like ours, and it might be helpful to understand that as we're all trying to navigate through life. But my guess is that the spiritual awakening process is going to be happening for many, many decades, and it's going to be a long process. It's not something that's going to be over and done with. But on the other side of it, if you got kids, and they're young and they're like 5 years old, they're going to get to live in a beautiful world, one that you wish you could grow up in. I think so. I really do have that expectation that world is really going to be something. And I know that there's a lot of people out there, young people, who think that, I would never bring a child into this world because they think it's just so horrific, and I could understand why somebody might think that. But, I think it's important that we have hope for our future as a people, as a planet. And I don't think that hope has to be blind. I think that you can see it. And I know I can see it because I've experienced it. I know what it is to be a rising phoenix. And I know that if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I know that it's happening on a big scale. And so I know that tomorrow is going to be way better than today. And so the children that are born today are going to be born. They're going to live and get to experience a world that you and I could only dream of. But you know what we get to do? This is amazing, right? Because we're like midwives. All of us here are like midwives to this birthing process that's happening as we exit the old world and we bring in the new world. And we get to be a part of that, which is so kick-ass and so amazing. And I just want to be a part of that process. I could never just stand on the sidelines and watch other people do this. And so that's why I make these videos, as I've transitioned from a place of pain and wounds to a more stable state, one that's more understanding. And I have the experience of actually going through the spiritual awakening in this dark night of the soul. And one of the great things when you make it through these processes is that you have an opportunity to give back, if you want, to others that are going through this process too. Because like I said, for somebody who doesn't understand what's happening, it can be very confronting and scary. And they're going to need a guide. someone to answer questions, because they just don't understand what's happening to them, because they can't believe maybe that the supernatural is engaging with them in their real life, and they just think it's batshit crazy. But that's exactly what's happening. And I would just say this, for those that are just think this is woo stuff, is like, if you're somebody that believes in the Bible stories, and you think that Moses was talking to a burning bush, and that Ezekiel saw what he saw, and that these people saw what they saw, and that their visions were real, then why would you even question what's happening here? That the supernatural can utilize all the modern tools that are available to help guide God's people from a state of confusion to a state of love and acceptance. But it starts with the self. You've got to, we're just not prepared for this process, because we just don't care about these things. If you look at our movies and you look at our entertainment and the things that we champion, they're not interested in these concepts. And that's unfortunate. And the world looks the way it does for a reason. It makes total sense. But if we want it to change, then our first thing we have to do is understand that there needs to be change, right? And being honest with ourselves and saying, how do I contribute to this mess? And maybe I don't directly contribute to it, but maybe I contribute to it by inaction. Maybe I just don't make enough effort to, instill ideas and principles in our children, or, we don't take leadership positions that we could take. We don't step up to the plate to do a little extra. And I would encourage anyone who's feeling like they're in a position where they have leadership skills and they have the ability to articulate their thoughts, that this is a time where your planet needs you, and it's asking for you to rise and stand with others to help usher in this new world. And especially if you're someone of a seasoned age and you've seen a lot of life, you've experienced a lot, right? Where you've been married, you've maybe lost a spouse, you've bought houses, you've lost houses, you've built businesses and lost them, you've had success, you've had failures, and those experiences are priceless. And unfortunately, I do think that the people that have those experiences traditionally are looked at as a burden instead of a sage, which is what you are. But, modern society doesn't like old people. It just thinks that you're in the way because you might talk a little slower or think a little slower, and they don't like all the wrinkles. I don't know what it is, but they have to put these 20-something-year-old people in the news. They don't know anything. They're just reading off a teleprompter. There are no lessons to be learned, and they're just force-feeding garbage to everybody. And there is just no wisdom that is being given to the masses in any way, shape, or form that is actually useful. Let's be honest. What is our entertainment system? Yeah, our news is entertainment. It's not even news. Come on. We know. It's a joke. And our TV, they don't call it a boob tube, idiot box for nothing. It's ridiculous. It's not serving us well. And I do think it's time to recognize that and stand up and say we want better for ourselves. And when we want better for ourselves, then we're going to bring better to the world. And all of us, have a vested interest in that, especially if you have children, if you have grandkids, or you have nieces and nephews, and you want those young ones to grow up in a world that's safe and that is, sees them as valuable that fights for their dignity, fights for their right to even be alive. It's so important. And you've heard the saying, right? You have to be the change you want to see in the world. You can't say that and leave it to somebody else. It's just not right, and it won't work. All of us have to do our part. All of us should. And I encourage you to look inside yourself and do an honest assessment. Where are your gifts? What could you do? What could your mission work be for the planet? When I make these videos, it only takes me at the most 30 minutes. I just come in here with a thought and I put it down. Whatever happens, happens. It's my contribution. And it really doesn't take much. That's not asking much of me. It doesn't take too much time out of my day, 30 minutes, to help the planet, to help my brothers and sisters. And one of the neat things when you come through this process is that, man, it's kind of crazy how you just kind of like, you fall in love with everything. It's kind of crazy, and everybody too. And you just start thinking like you love everyone, and you love birds, and you love that dog that never stops barking next door. And you love all these little creatures that are all over the place, and you don't walk on ants, you try not to, and it's just like everything seems to like matter more. Because it does. It's just more meaningful to you, and you have a just deeper understanding of the signature of life. And you just get closer and closer to the concept that there's no way in the world that you could ever harm somebody, because when you harm somebody else, you're harming yourself, and you start to realize that it hurts everyone, and that we're all connected, which is something a lot of people don't like to hear either, that we're all one. But we are. We're all connected in so many different ways, in ways that we don't see, but that doesn't mean we're not connected. I always like to use that, the illustration of how many times have you thought of somebody and then they text you within minutes and they're like, oh, I was just thinking of you. And you're like, yeah, huh. And I know every time I ask somebody if that happens to them, they say yes. And what do you think that is? What do you think that is? Man, that's connection, right? Because you're connected to each other. We're connected. We're all connected by these invisible threads. It's energy. Believe it. Don't doubt it. Yeah, it's supernatural. It's kick-ass. It's crazy. It's awesome. The world is... The nature of reality is not everything that you think it is. There's more. There's more. And, the challenge in this awakening is going to introduce you to concepts you've never heard of before. And you're going to just know. You're going to be looking for terminologies to describe what you're experiencing, which is supernatural occurrences, things that are happening that you've never experienced before, and can only explain it by saying it's supernatural. How exciting is that? That the universe, that God is directly working with you and helping you know yourself better so that you can help the world be a better place to live in. That is really amazing. That is like a movie right there. I'm so excited to be able to have this platform, this business, to do this. I feel like this is a dream come true. And I wouldn't give this up for anything. I consider myself to be like the luckiest guy on the planet. I just can't even believe I get to do this, you know, and I enjoy it so much. And I hope that I'm able to put something out every day, you know. I love all of you very much, more than I ever have before. It's so crazy for me, but I promise you it's real, and I couldn't not do this because I love you so much. Does that seem crazy to hear? I hope that everyone has an opportunity to go through this awakening. I just know that on the other side of it is something that you can't even imagine right now. But the best thing that could ever happen to you in your life would be to have one. You want one? I can tell you how to do it. It's pretty easy. But in order to get one, you're going to have to appeal to a higher power. You can decide what that higher power is. You want to, you know, my daughter calls the higher power Gary. Gary is God. You can give God any name you want. You want to call God Gary. You want to call God God. You want to call God Jesus. You want to call God Buddha, whatever. Gaia, Mother Earth, Source, the beam. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's all people are talking about the same thing. This all-powerful force and energy. And what you need to do is you need to get quiet. Go somewhere. Go into your room, your bed, lay down. And you talk to God and you say, you know what? I want that spiritual awakening so bad, because I want my life to look very different than what it looks like right here, right now, because I'm not digging this. I don't like what's happening. I don't want it. And I want a different way of seeing things. And I want to get out of my own way. I'm so tired of my decisions putting me in a place where all I feel is hurt, anger, resentment, and just things are just not working for me. And so I need to do something different, but I don't know what to do. And so you're a perfect candidate, yes, for a spiritual awakening, because guess what, man? God can't fill your life, your world with information. He can't help you if you think you already know everything. So guess what? You're the perfect vessel for a spiritual awakening. But you got to really want it, and you have to be willing to do the work, okay? And I am telling you that it's confronting. So okay, the bliss comes after, but between the beginning and bliss, it's hard, okay? So I want to make sure that you understand that you're gonna have to work, but it's worth it. It really is worth it. And so if you ask God, if you appeal to God and you say, I got to have this spiritual awakening. I've got to have this awakening. I need to. I've got to. Please. And you know how you'll be sincere? You'll be soaked with tears. That's how you know you really want it, man. You'll be crying for it because you know you really need it. And God really needs to see that. I know that when God, when the universe, whatever you call that power, well, that power is listening, always listening, always transmitting and always receiving. And God hears that plea. God hears it. And if it's authentic, if it's real, you're going to get the help you need. But you got to understand that it's not going to be all peaches and cream in the beginning. All right? Just be aware of that. So, anyway, I think I'm pretty much at the end of it. We're at like 40 minutes here, and I don't even know what I set out to do here, but I hope that this video was useful. I hope that it was something that caused you to think and consider. And I hope that, it would help you at the very least, have some patience with somebody that you live with or you have to work with or whatever that gets on your nerves, and you understand that, people are all dealing with life at varying degrees and difficulties. And, it helps if we have a little bit of patience with each other and just understand that, anxiety is a real thing, okay? Sometimes people are going to work with very little sleep because they have a lot of anxiety and they're not happy or whatever, and we have to, cut some of these people some slack and be understanding, So I think that I'm going to hang it up for tonight, but I'm glad we had this time to talk. I hope that your day was really great. And, if it wasn't, you might want to take some headphones and just listen, like the music you hear in the background. I listen to so much of that, and it really just soothes the soul. It's really remarkable how quick it can work too. Also, dancing works pretty good, but give yourself a little bit of time each day. Treat yourself right. Give yourself the time, the space you need for quiet time, for reflection, for prayer, whatever you want to, meditation, whatever you want to call it, is getting quiet and just putting the work aside and giving yourselves the time that you might need to treat yourself well. And if you're not in the habit of treating yourself well, you need to start. Give yourself a break. Do something nice for yourself. Get yourself one of them fancy coffees over at Starbucks. And my daughter and I like to go and we get the matcha. It's green. Oh, it's so good with a strawberry whipped top. It's so good. Oh my gosh. But I'm doing keto right now again, so I can't eat that stuff, man. I can't have sugar right now. So it's kind of sucks, man. I'm missing that thing. And Melody got to have pizza tonight, and I did not get to have pizza tonight. I had eggs, Spam, and a protein drink. That was my dinner. Oh my gosh. But anyway, I hope everybody is having a good night. I love you so much, and I can't wait to talk to you the next time. Bye.